The wind screamed across the frozen moon like a wounded animal. Ice crystals cut through the air sharp enough to draw blood from exposed skin. Corporal Jiwoo pressed herself against the hull of the wrecked ship, her breath forming white clouds inside her helmet. The metal was twisted and blackened from weapons fire. This had been a Krath warship once. Now it was just another corpse on a battlefield that nobody wanted but everyone fought over. Contact 30 meters east. Her squad leader's voice crackled in her ear. Moving fast, Jiwoo raised her rifle and swept the area. Through the swirling snow, she saw a dark shape darting between ice formations. Too small to be a full-grown Krath warrior. Maybe a scout. Maybe something else. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "I'm going after it," she said into her comm. Negative. Hold position and wait for backup. But the figure was already disappearing into a canyon carved deep into the ice. Jiwoo made a choice. She ran. Behind her, she heard her squad leader shouting, but she was already too far away. The canyon walls rose up on either side of her, blocking out the gray sky. The wind became quieter here, trapped and circling. Her boots crunched on fresh snow. She found the figure huddled against the canyon wall 50 meters in. At first, she thought it was a pile of equipment. Then it moved. Jiwoo's finger tensed on the trigger. She had seen what the Krath could do. She had helped bury the bodies after the last raid. The Krath were monsters, 8 feet tall with scales like armor and claws that could tear through a combat suit. They called humans soft meat in their language. They laughed when they killed. But this was not a warrior. This was a child. The young Krath was curled into a ball, shaking so hard that Jiwoo could hear his scales rattling together. Blue blood leaked from a wound on his side. His eyes were huge and yellow and full of fear. When he saw her, he tried to bare his teeth, but the gesture was weak. He hissed, a sound that should have been threatening but came out like a whimper. Jiwoo lowered her rifle slowly. "Easy," she said, even though she knew he probably could not understand her words. "I'm not going to hurt you." The young Krath tried to stand. His legs buckled. He fell hard onto the ice and did not try to get up again. Jiwoo could see the implant on the side of his neck, the bioregulator that all Krath wore. It was sparking, broken. Without it, his body could not handle the cold. He was dying right in front of her. She should leave. That was the smart thing to do. The safe thing. He was the enemy. His people had killed so many humans. They would kill more. If the positions were reversed, no Krath would help her. They would probably laugh as she froze. But Jiwoo thought about her younger brother Hyun. She thought about how he looked at her when she came home on leave, like she was a hero. She thought about what kind of person she wanted to be, what kind of person she had promised herself she would stay even in war. She made her decision. "Command, this is Corporal Jiwoo," she said into her comm. "I need emergency extraction. I have a wounded civilian. Krath juvenile. He needs medical attention." The response was immediate and angry. "Are you insane? Leave it and return to the squad. That's an order." "He's just a kid," Jiwoo said. "He'll die out here. Then he dies. Get back here now." Jiwoo turned off her comm. She knelt beside the young Krath. He flinched away from her, trying to make himself smaller. His whole body shook with cold. She could see ice forming on his scales. His lips were turning dark blue. Minutes, maybe. That was all he had left. Her combat armor kept her body at a perfect temperature. It recycled heat, generated power, protected her from environments that would kill an unprotected human in seconds. The young Krath needed it more than she did. She reached for the release clasps. Her hands hesitated. Without the armor, she would freeze too. The temperature was 40 degrees below zero and dropping. The blizzard that had been building all day was about to hit. She might not survive long enough for rescue. This was stupid. This was suicide. She thought about Hyun again. She thought about the kind of story she wanted him to tell about his sister. Jiwoo released the clasps. The armor came apart in sections. She pulled it off piece by piece, feeling the cold slam into her like a physical blow. Her teeth started chattering immediately. Her fingers went numb. The underlayer suit she wore was designed for inside the armor, not for direct exposure. It would not be enough. The young Krath watched her with confused, terrified eyes. When she lifted the chest piece of the armor toward him, he jerked back, hissing again. He thought she was attacking. She moved slowly, carefully, wrapping the armor sections around his small body. The armor was too big for him, but it would work. The thermal systems activated automatically, responding to his body heat. The shaking began to slow. The blue tint faded from his lips. He stared at her like she was something he could not understand. Something impossible. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Jiwoo sat down beside him, wrapping her arms around herself. The cold was already deep in her bones. She could not feel her feet anymore. Her vision blurred at the edges. She tried to activate her emergency beacon, but her fingers would not work right. It took 3 tries. When it finally blinked to life, she did not know if anyone would come in time. The young Krath moved. Jiwoo tensed, wondering if he would attack now that he had his strength back. Instead, he shifted closer to her. His body, warmed by the armor, pressed against her side. It was not much, but it was something. Heat. Precious heat. She looked at him. He looked at her. Neither of them spoke. They did not need to. In that moment, they both understood. They were just 2 people trying not to die on a frozen moon far from home. The blizzard hit. The world turned white. Jiwoo closed her eyes and hoped that someone would find them before it was too late. Beside her, the young Krath made a small sound, almost like a purr. His clawed hand reached out and gripped her arm. Not to hurt, to hold on, to not be alone in the cold. The blizzard screamed around them like a living thing. Snow piled up against the canyon walls in massive drifts. Jiwoo could barely see 3 feet in front of her face. Everything was white and cold and endless. Her body had stopped shivering. That was bad. She knew that was bad. Shivering meant your body was still fighting. When it stopped, it meant you were losing. The young Krath pressed closer to her. His name was Thal. She did not know that yet, but she would learn it later. For now, he was just a scared child wrapped in her armor, and she was just a dying human who had made a stupid choice. At least that was what her training officers would say. Stupid, emotional, weak. But she did not feel weak. Even as her vision swam and her thoughts became slow and thick, she did not regret what she had done. Thal made a sound, a clicking noise deep in his throat. He was trying to communicate. Jiwoo tried to focus on him. His yellow eyes were wide with concern. He touched her face with one clawed finger, careful not to scratch. Her skin must have felt like ice to him. She tried to smile, but her face muscles would not work properly. "I'm okay," she whispered, even though she was not okay. Even though they both knew she was not okay. Thal understood tone, if not words. He shook his head, a gesture that apparently meant the same thing for Krath as it did for humans. He looked around frantically, searching for something. Shelter, maybe, help, anything, but there was nothing. Just ice and snow and the howling wind. He made a decision. Thal started pulling off pieces of the armor. Jiwoo tried to stop him, her frozen hands pawing uselessly at his arms. "No," she wanted to say. "You need it. You'll die without it." But her voice would not work anymore. The cold had stolen it. Thal ignored her weak protests. He removed the chest piece but kept the leg and arm sections. Then he did something that Jiwoo had never seen or heard of a Krath doing. He opened the chest piece like a shell and positioned it to create a small windbreak. Then he curled his body around Jiwoo, covering her with his bulk. The armor pieces still attached to him pressed against her, and his own body heat, now stabilized by the bioregulator that was working again, radiated into her. It was not enough. They both knew it. But it was more than nothing. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time stopped making sense. Jiwoo drifted in and out of consciousness. When she was aware, she felt Thal's steady breathing, heard his double heartbeat thumping against her ear. When she drifted, she dreamed of home, of Earth, of her brother Hyun running through their small apartment laughing, full of life and hope and futures that might never come. She dreamed of her mother's face when the military officers came to the door. She dreamed of the funeral they would have, the folded flag, the empty words about honor and sacrifice. She dreamed of Hyun asking why she had died for a monster. Not a monster, she mumbled, half asleep. Just a kid. Thal's arms tightened around her. He made a soft sound, almost like a song. A Krath lullaby, maybe. Something his mother had sung to him when he was even smaller. The sound was oddly beautiful, melodic despite coming from a throat designed for roaring battle cries. Jiwoo's eyes opened slightly. "You're not so scary," she whispered. "Not really." Thal tilted his head, studying her face. He reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out something small. A ration bar. Not human food. Krath nutrition paste compressed into a solid form. It would probably taste terrible to her, might even make her sick, but it was calories. It was energy. He broke off a small piece and held it to her lips. She tried to eat it. Her throat was too frozen. She could not swallow. Thal made a distressed sound. He looked around again, desperate. Then he did something else that no Krath should do. He bit off a piece of the ration bar himself, chewed it, and pressed his mouth to hers, transferring the warmed, softened paste. Jiwoo's eyes widened in shock. Among Krath, sharing food mouth to mouth was something done only between family. Parents and children, siblings, it was intimate, sacred, and he was doing it for her, a human, an enemy. The paste was bitter and strange, but it was warm. She swallowed. He fed her another small portion the same way. And another, not much. Her stomach was too cold to handle more. But enough, maybe enough. Thank you, she breathed. Thal understood. He nodded. Then he spoke, slow and careful, in badly accented human standard. You saved, Thal, saved you. He knew some human language, probably taught in their military schools. Know your enemy, but he had never expected to use it like this. Jiwoo, she said, tapping her chest. My name is Jiwoo. Jiwoo, he repeated, the syllables clumsy in his mouth. Jiwoo? Good. She almost laughed. Good. That was one way to put it. Stupid might be more accurate, but stupid and good were not always opposites. The night stretched on forever. The blizzard showed no signs of stopping. Jiwoo's beacon blinked faithfully in the snow, but she did not know if anyone could see it. Did not know if anyone was even looking. She had disobeyed orders. Maybe they decided to leave her. Maybe they thought she was already dead. Thal never let go of her. His body stayed wrapped around hers, a living shield against the killing cold. He sang sometimes those strange, beautiful songs. He talked in his broken human language, telling her about his homeworld, his family, his dreams. She did not understand most of it, but she listened. She stayed awake when she could because sleeping felt too much like dying. Brother, she said at one point. I have a brother, Hyun, he's 12. You remind me of him. Thal's eyes softened. Hyun, brother, Thal has sister, small, strong. He made a gesture with his hands, trying to show height. She waits home. They were not so different. Both of them had people waiting. People who loved them. People who would grieve if they did not come home. We're going to make it, Jiwoo said, though she was not sure she believed it. We have to. They're waiting. Yes, Thal agreed. Waiting. As dawn approached, the blizzard finally began to ease. The wind died down to a low moan. The snow fell lighter. In the distance, Jiwoo heard something, a sound that did not belong to nature. Engines, aircraft engines. They're coming, she said. Someone's coming. Thal heard it too. He sat up, still keeping her wrapped in his arms and the armor pieces. His head turned toward the sound. Then he looked down at her, conflict clear on his face. If his people found them like this, it would go badly for him. If her people found them, it would go badly for both of them. But the sound grew closer. Human engines. Coalition ships. Jiwoo's people. Go, she said. Hide, they'll kill you. Thal shook his head. No, stay, Jiwoo. Cold, need help. They'll shoot you. Maybe. He looked at her with those strange yellow eyes. Maybe not, you. Teach Thal, humans different, maybe. Good different. The ships appeared over the canyon rim, spotlights cutting through the thinning snow. Jiwoo raised one arm, weakly waving. Thal stayed beside her, holding her up, refusing to run even when the soldiers dropped down on rappel lines with their weapons raised, and their shouts of alarm and confusion echoing off the ice walls. He stayed, because she had stayed. Because she had given him her warmth when she had no reason to. Because in one long, terrible night, a human and a Krath had learned that survival was not always about being the strongest or the fastest or the most ruthless. Sometimes survival was about choosing not to be alone. Jiwoo woke up to the sound of machines beeping and the smell of sterile medical air. Her body felt heavy, like someone had replaced her bones with lead. When she tried to move her fingers, pain shot up her arms. Frostbite. She could see the bandages wrapped around her hands. Thick and white. Her feet were bandaged too. The doctors had saved her life, but the cold had taken its price. A nurse noticed she was awake and hurried out. A moment later, Major Daejung walked in. His face was hard, carved from stone. Jiwoo had served under him for 2 years. She had never seen him smile, but she had never seen him this angry either. Corporal, he said, and the words sounded like an insult. Do you have any idea what you've done? Jiwoo's throat was dry. She tried to speak, but only a croak came out. The nurse brought her water. She sipped it slowly before trying again. I saved a life, sir. You saved an enemy combatant. You violated direct orders. You endangered your squad. You gave military equipment to a hostile alien. Daejung leaned over her bed. You're a disgrace to the uniform. He was a child, Jiwoo said quietly. He was dying. He was Krath. Daejung straightened up. When you recover, there will be a court-martial. The coalition is not happy. Humanity's position in the galactic community is already weak. We cannot afford soldiers who put emotions above orders. We cannot afford to look soft. So we should let children freeze to death? That makes us strong. Daejung's jaw tightened. That makes us survivors. The Krath would not have saved you. Remember that. He turned and walked out, his boots clicking on the tile floor. Jiwoo lay back and stared at the ceiling. She did not regret what she had done. Even now, even facing punishment, she would make the same choice. But she was afraid. Afraid of what came next. Afraid of what she had started. Across the border in Krath space, Thal was having his own problems. He woke in a military hospital, the kind reserved for warriors and their families. His father, Commander Vek, stood beside his bed. Vek was everything a Krath should be. Tall, scarred, decorated with honors from a dozen campaigns. His scales were dark with age and his eyes were cold with disappointment. You were found with a human, Vek said. Explain. Thal sat up slowly. The bioregulator on his neck had been replaced. His wound had been treated. He was alive and he knew exactly who to thank for that. But he could not tell his father the truth. Not all of it. The human ambushed me, Thal lied. Captured me. Used me as a shield against our warriors. I escaped when their ships arrived. Vek studied him for a long moment. The human was nearly dead from cold exposure. Her armor was found on you. Thal's blood ran cold. He had not thought about that. He had been too focused on keeping Jiwoo alive. She forced me to wear it. Said I was more valuable alive as a hostage. Interesting. Vek's tail swished behind him, a sign of thought. The human reports say something different. They say she gave you the armor willingly, that she nearly died saving you. Human lies, Thal said quickly. Propaganda. They want to look merciful. Perhaps. Vek turned away. You will return to the academy once you heal. This incident will not be mentioned again. Understood? Yes, father. But Vek paused at the door. The humans are weak, Thal. They feel too much. Think too much. It makes them easy prey. Remember that. He left. Thal sat alone in his room, staring at his clawed hands. Jiwoo's face haunted him. The way she had looked at him without hate. The way she had chosen his life over her own comfort, over her safety, over her orders. No Krath would do that. No Krath had ever done that. It confused him. It terrified him. It changed something deep inside him that he did not have words for yet. 3 months passed. Jiwoo healed slowly. She lost 2 toes to frostbite. Her hands would never have full sensation again. But she lived. She returned to duty, though her status was uncertain. The court-martial loomed over her like a storm cloud. The news spread through human military channels and beyond. Some called her a hero. Most called her a fool. Politicians in the coalition saw an opportunity. They used her case as evidence that humans were too emotional, too irrational for full military integration. There were calls to reduce human participation in coalition forces, to push humanity back to the edges of space where they belonged. Jiwoo watched the news feeds in her quarters and felt sick. She had not meant to cause this. She had just wanted to save one life. Thal returned to the academy. He threw himself into training, trying to forget, but he could not. Every time he practiced combat against human-shaped training dummies, he hesitated. Every time his instructors taught about human weakness, he remembered Jiwoo's strength. The strength it took to remove armor in the freezing cold. The strength to choose compassion over survival. His scores dropped. His combat efficiency ratings fell. Other students whispered about him. Some said he had been traumatized by capture. Others said he had been infected with human weakness. Thal said nothing. He did his training and kept his thoughts to himself, until one day Instructor Ral pulled him aside after combat simulations. Ral was old for a Krath warrior, with gray-streaked scales and a limp from an old wound. He taught hand-to-hand combat and tactical thinking. He was respected but not feared. Too thoughtful. Too quiet. You hesitate, Ral said, when facing human opponents. Why? Thal considered lying, but something about Ral's eyes stopped him. I knew a human once, he said carefully. On the ice moon. She was not what I expected. Ral nodded slowly. What did she do? She saved my life. She did not have to. She should not have. But she did. Thal looked at his instructor. Why would prey do that? Perhaps humans are not prey, Ral said quietly. Perhaps we have been wrong about them. Thal stared. That is heresy. That goes against everything we are taught. Yes. Ral looked around to make sure they were alone. I will tell you something, Thal. Something that happened 20 years ago. I was young then, captured during a border skirmish. Wounded badly, left to die by my own people because I was weak. A human medic found me. She was old for a human. Gray hair, soft hands. She treated my wounds. She kept me alive until I could be traded back in a prisoner exchange. Why? I asked her that. She said because she was a doctor and doctors save lives. All lives. Ral's eyes were distant. They executed her when they found out. Her own people said she wasted resources on an enemy, but she knew that would happen. She did it anyway. Thal felt something crack open inside him. The humans kill their own for showing mercy? Sometimes. When fear is strong. When politics matter more than people. Ral put a hand on Thal's shoulder. But not always. There are humans who fight for her name now, who say she was right, and there are Krath like me who never forgot what she did, who wonder if maybe strength comes in different forms. What do? Thal asked. I cannot forget the human who saved me, but I cannot speak of it without being called weak. You wait, Ral said. You train. You learn. And when the moment comes, when the choice appears before you, you will know what to do. He paused. The human who saved you. She faces punishment, yes? I heard something about that. A trial. If you testified, you could change the outcome. You could tell the truth about what she did. I would be executed as a traitor, Thal said. Yes, Ral agreed. Probably. But you would be alive in other ways. The ways that matter. Thal thought about that for a long time after Ral left. He thought about honor and duty and truth. He thought about Jiwoo wrapping armor around him while she froze. He thought about what kind of person he wanted to be, and slowly, impossibly, he began to make a plan. The courtroom was packed with observers from a dozen species. Jiwoo sat at a simple table wearing her dress uniform. The medals on her chest felt heavy. Her lawyer, a tired-looking human woman named Captain Subin, shuffled through papers beside her. Across the room, the prosecution sat ready with evidence files and witness statements. Above them all, 3 judges from different coalition species looked down from their bench. Neutral, impartial, cold. Jiwoo had already heard 2 days of testimony, fellow soldiers describing her disobedience, medical experts explaining how reckless her actions were, political analysts discussing how her case damaged humanity's reputation. The message was clear. She was guilty. The only question was how severe the punishment would be. Subin leaned close and whispered, The prosecution is going to rest soon. Then we present our side. I have character witnesses lined up. It's not much, but it's something. Will it be enough? Jiwoo asked. No, Subin said honestly. But we try anyway. The lead prosecutor stood up. He was a tall alien with blue skin and too many eyes. His voice was smooth and confident. The prosecution rests, Your Honors. The evidence is clear. Corporal Jiwoo violated military protocol, endangered her squad, and provided aid to an enemy combatant. We ask that she be discharged dishonorably and that humanity's military participation privileges be reviewed. The head judge nodded. The defense may now present its case. Subin stood up, but before she could speak, the doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. Every head turned. Guards reached for weapons, and Thal walked in. He was bigger than Jiwoo remembered. 3 months of academy training had added muscle to his frame, but his eyes were the same, yellow and bright and full of determination. He wore simple clothes, not military uniform. His hands were raised to show he meant no harm. I am Thal of the Krath, he said in careful human standard. I request permission to testify. The courtroom erupted. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. The judges hammered for order. The prosecution lawyer jumped up, objecting loudly. Security guards surrounded Thal, weapons pointed at his chest. Through it all, Thal stood calm, his eyes locked on Jiwoo. She stared back at him, shocked and terrified. What was he doing? This was suicide. The Krath would kill him for this. Order, the head judge shouted. Guards, stand down but remain alert. She looked at Thal. Young Krath, do you understand what you are doing? Your presence here could be considered an act of treason by your people. Yes, Thal said simply. I understand. And you still wish to testify? Yes, the human Jiwoo saved my life. I will speak the truth about what happened. She deserves that. The head judge looked at the other judges. They conferred in quiet voices. Finally, she nodded. Very well. The court will hear your testimony. But understand that we cannot protect you from the consequences this may bring. I do not ask for protection, Thal said, only for the chance to speak. They led him to the witness stand. He looked too young sitting there, surrounded by guards and suspicious faces. The prosecution lawyer approached him like a predator circling prey. State your name and position, the lawyer demanded. I am Thal. I am a student at the Krath Military Academy. Before that, I was part of a training cohort deployed to the ice moon of Velshar. And on that moon, you encountered the defendant? Yes. Describe the circumstances. Thal took a breath. Our ship was damaged in combat. The adults evacuated, but left behind the young ones who were too injured or too slow. I was left behind. My bioregulator was broken. I was dying from the cold, and the defendant found you? Yes, she was tracking me. I thought she would kill me. I tried to fight, but I was too weak. Thal's voice was steady, but Jiwoo could see his hands gripping the edge of the witness stand. She lowered her weapon. She chose not to kill me. Did she capture you as a prisoner? No. Thal looked directly at the prosecution lawyer. She saved me. Explain. I was freezing to death. My species cannot survive extreme cold without technological help. My bioregulator was broken. Jiwoo saw this. She removed her own armor, the armor that kept her warm and alive, and she wrapped it around me. She gave up her protection so that I could live. Murmurs ran through the courtroom. The prosecution lawyer frowned. You expect us to believe a human would sacrifice herself for a Krath? An enemy? I do not ask you to believe anything, Thal said. I tell you what happened. She took off her armor in temperatures that would kill her. She wrapped it around me. Then she sat beside me and waited for rescue, knowing she might die before it came. Perhaps she hoped to use you as a bargaining chip, a hostage. If that were true, she would have kept her armor and restrained me. Instead, she nearly froze to death, keeping me warm. When I was strong enough, I tried to give the armor back. She refused. She made me keep it. The lawyer tried a different approach. The Krath are known for their strength and ferocity. Surely you could have overpowered her and taken the armor by force. Yes, Thal admitted. I could have. When my strength returned, I was bigger and stronger than her. I could have killed her easily. She knew this. She took that risk anyway. Why would she do something so foolish? Thal was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. I have asked myself that question every day since. In Krath culture, we are taught that the weak deserve to die. That mercy is weakness, that only the strong matter. But Jiwoo showed me something different. She showed me that strength can also mean choosing to help those who cannot help themselves. That true courage is protecting life, even when that life belongs to an enemy. He looked at Jiwoo. She told me about her brother. A boy my age named Hyun. She said I reminded her of him. In that moment, she did not see an enemy. She saw a child who needed help, and she helped me because that is who she is. The courtroom was silent now. Every eye was on Thal. The night was long, he continued. The blizzard was terrible. Jiwoo began to die. Her body shut down from the cold. I could have left her. I could have taken the armor and found shelter. But she had given me warmth when I had none. So I gave her what warmth I could. I fed her from my own rations. I protected her with my body. And I stayed with her until rescue came. You stayed even though her people would see you as a threat? Yes, because she taught me something important. She taught me that we choose what we are. Krath are human, we are not just what our cultures tell us to be. We can be more. Thal looked at the judges. Jiwoo did not violate protocol because she was weak or foolish. She violated protocol because she believed that some things matter more than rules. Life matters. Compassion matters. Choosing to be good even when it is hard, that matters most of all. The prosecution lawyer tried to argue more, but his heart was not in it. The damage was done. Or rather, the healing was done. Thal's words had changed the air in the room. Subin stood for cross-examination. Thal, what will happen to you when you return to Krath space? I do not know, Thal said honestly. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps execution. But it does not matter. Speaking the truth is worth the cost. Do you consider Corporal Ji-woo a friend? Thal thought about that. I do not know if Krath and humans can be friends. Our people have been enemies for so long, but I know that she saved me when she had no reason to. I know that she is brave and kind. If that is what friendship means, then yes. She is my friend. The judges called for recess. When they returned 2 hours later, their decision was clear on their faces. The head judge spoke. This court has reviewed all testimony and evidence. While Corporal Ji-woo did violate military protocol, this court finds that her actions were motivated by humanitarian concern rather than malice or incompetence. The testimony provided by Thal of the Krath has demonstrated that her actions, while risky, aligned with the highest ideals of the coalition, which is to protect life and seek peace. Ji-woo held her breath. The charges are dismissed. Corporal Ji-woo is free to return to duty with a formal reprimand on her record but no further punishment. The courtroom exploded with noise. Some cheered. Some protested. Ji-woo just sat there stunned. Subin grabbed her shoulder, grinning. You're free. You're actually free. Ji-woo looked across the room at Thal. Guards were already surrounding him, preparing to escort him out. Their eyes met. She stood up and pushed through the crowd until she reached him. Thank you, she said simply. You saved me first, Thal replied. This is nothing compared to that. What will happen to you now? Thal smiled, a strange expression on a Krath face. I will find out. But I am not afraid. You taught me not to be afraid of doing what is right. They took him away then. Ji-woo watched him go, wondering if she would ever see him again. Wondering what change they had set in motion with one night on a frozen moon and one morning in a courtroom. The galaxy was watching. And some minds in some small way began to open. 6 months after the trial, Ji-woo stood in the briefing room of a coalition military base and listened to her new commanding officer outline an idea that sounded completely insane. Captain Subin, the lawyer who had defended her and who now somehow commanded this entire facility, pointed at the holographic display showing 2 groups of soldiers. One human, one Krath, we're calling it the Bridge Program, Subin said. Joint training between human and Krath military personnel. The goal is to build understanding, reduce conflict, and prove that our species can work together. Ji-woo stared at the display. With respect, Captain, they'll kill each other in the first week. Maybe, Subin admitted. But your case got people thinking. Both sides. There are Krath who saw Thal's testimony and started asking questions. There are humans who want to prove we can do more than just fight. This is a chance to actually change things. And I'm involved because you're the reason this is possible. You and Thal. The politicians on both sides hate this idea, but they can't publicly oppose it without looking bad. So they're letting us try, probably hoping we fail. Subin smiled. Let's not give them that satisfaction. The first group arrived a week later. 10 humans, 10 Krath, all volunteers. The humans were easy to recognize. Nervous, determined, trying to look braver than they felt. Among them were 2 young soldiers named Bora and Minsu, who Ji-woo would come to know well. The Krath were harder to read. They arrived with military precision, their scales gleaming, their expressions carefully neutral. And at the front of the group, taller now and wearing an actual uniform, was Thal. Ji-woo's breath caught. She had not known he would be here. Had not known if she would ever see him again. After the trial, he had disappeared back into Krath space. She had heard rumors. Some said he was executed. Some said he was in prison. Some said he had been exiled. All of those rumors were wrong. Thal saw her and his face brightened in what might have been a smile. He broke formation and walked straight to her. The other Krath shifted uncomfortably. The humans reached for weapons they were not carrying. Subin watched with interest. Ji-woo, Thal said. You are here. I hoped you would be. I hoped you were alive, Ji-woo replied. What happened after the trial? Many things. Bad things and good things. Mostly difficult things. He looked around at the facility. But I am here now. That is what matters. Over the next weeks, Ji-woo learned more of Thal's story. After the trial, he had been detained by Krath military intelligence. They interrogated him for days, trying to determine if he was a traitor or simply young and stupid. His father, Commander Vec, had wanted him executed as an example. But Instructor Raoul and others like him had argued for mercy. In the end, Thal was given a choice: renounce his testimony and return to normal training, or stand by his words and accept exile from traditional military service. Thal chose exile. He was assigned to a research division, a place for Krath who did not fit the warrior mold. He expected to spend his life in obscurity. Then the bridge program was announced and Ral had personally recommended him. He said I was perfect for it, Thal told Jiwoo during a rare quiet moment, because I had already built a bridge once on an ice moon in a blizzard. The training was brutal in ways that had nothing to do with physical challenges. The first week, a Krath named Vex and a human named Minsu got into a fight over a perceived insult. It took 4 people to separate them. The second week, someone sabotaged equipment and blamed the other species. Trust was non-existent, but slowly, through shared suffering and forced cooperation, something began to change. It started small. A Krath named Ren helped Bora with a climbing exercise she could not finish alone. A human named Dongjun shared his rations with a Krath who had forgotten his. Little moments of unexpected kindness that neither species was trained for. Jiwoo and Thal became unofficial leaders of their respective groups. They organized joint exercises, mediated disputes, and led by example. Where they went, others slowly followed. The real test came 2 months into the program. An unexpected ice storm trapped a mixed squad in the same canyon where Jiwoo and Thal had first met. Equipment failed. Communications went dark. The group was 8 people, 4 human and 4 Krath, including Bora and Minsu. Jiwoo and Thal led the rescue mission. They had to work together perfectly, combining human technology with Krath physical strength. Jiwoo called out coordinates while Thal used his superior night vision to navigate. They rappelled down ice walls and dug through snowdrifts. When they finally found the trapped squad, everyone was alive but hypothermic. But there was not enough thermal gear for everyone. Not enough to keep both species warm during the long wait for additional rescue. Jiwoo looked at Thal. He looked at her. They both remembered another night like this we share, Thal said simply, and they did. Humans and Krath huddled together, sharing body heat and equipment without question or hesitation. Bora ended up pressed against a Krath twice her size, both of them shivering but alive. Minsu wrapped his thermal blanket around 2 Krath who were too cold to protest. When rescue finally arrived, the rescuers found something remarkable. They found 2 species that had been enemies for generations, curled together for warmth, protecting each other, surviving together. The image was broadcast across coalition space. It became a symbol. The bridge program was expanded. More volunteers signed up. Not everyone liked it. There were protests on both sides. There were incidents and setbacks and moments when the whole thing nearly fell apart, but it did not fall apart. Because Jiwoo and Thal and people like them refused to let it, years passed. The bridge program became a permanent institution. Mixed human Krath units began serving in peacekeeping operations. There were still conflicts. There was still mistrust. But there were also friendships, partnerships, understanding where there had been only hate. Jiwoo became a liaison officer, helping coordinate between human and Krath diplomatic efforts. It was not the military career she had imagined, but it was important. Maybe more important than anything else she could have done. Thal became something similar on the Krath side. He faced opposition from traditionalists like his father, who still believed humans were weak prey. But he also found support from progressives who saw that the galaxy was changing and the Krath needed to change with it. They met often, Jiwoo and Thal. Official business mostly, but also friendship. Real friendship. The kind that had been forged in the cold and tested by fire and proven stronger than anyone expected. One day they returned to the ice moon together. To the canyon where it had all started. A memorial had been built there. A simple stone marker with words in both human and Krath languages. Warmth shared in the cold changes everything. They stood before it in silence. Snow fell gently around them, but it was a good day. Clear, calm, beautiful in its own harsh way. Do you ever regret it? Thal asked. That night? What you did? Jiwoo thought about her lost toes, her damaged hands, her changed career. She thought about the court-martial and the fear and the pain. Then she thought about the bridge program, about Bora and Minsu and dozens of others learning to see past old hatreds. She thought about the children who would grow up in a galaxy where humans and Krath worked together, instead of just killing each other. No, she said, I don't regret it. Neither do I, Thal said. You saved more than my life that night, Jiwoo. You saved the person I could become. The person I am now. We saved each other, Jiwoo corrected. You could have left me. You stayed, because you taught me how. They stood together as the sun set over the ice fields. Two people from two different worlds who had learned the most important lesson of all. That compassion was not weakness. That mercy was not foolishness. That choosing to see the person behind the enemy was the bravest thing anyone could do. The galaxy was vast and full of conflict. There would always be wars and hatred and fear, but there would also be moments like this. Bridges built in the cold, warmth shared when it mattered most. Choices made that proved that people, any people, could be more than what they were expected to be. Jiwoo reached out and placed her scarred hand on the memorial stone. Thal placed his clawed hand beside hers. Human and Krath, enemy and friend, both and neither. In the distance, a new generation of mixed coalition Krath peacekeeping forces patrolled the border. The soldiers were young, but they were not afraid. They had been taught by people like Jiwoo and Thal. People who knew that the strongest armor was not made of metal and technology. It was made of kindness, of courage, of the choice to care for someone who was cold and afraid and far from home. And that armor, once shared, could never truly be taken away. The snow continued to fall, gentle and endless, covering the ice moon in fresh white. Somewhere above, ships moved through the stars carrying humans and Krath working side by side. Somewhere below, the canyon held its secrets and its memories. And in the space between, two friends stood together, proof that even in the coldest places, even between the most unlikely people, warmth could have begun with a trembling predator cub and a human who took off her armor had become something bigger than either of them. It had become hope. It had become possibility. It had become the simple, radical truth that everyone deserves warmth in the cold, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is give yours away. The